But that anger on the streets of Minneapolis reached the steps of Capitol Hill. 1 week after the shooting death of Renee Good, it appears at least half of Washington is moving on. 6 prosecutors working the case in Minnesota have resigned, the Justice Department saying the officer who shot and killed Good was acting in self-defense, also freezing out any effort by Minnesota to investigate. Those officials are now suing the U.S. government and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed is live for us on Capitol Hill. Nate, you've worked the halls of Congress today. Has that anger on the streets of Minneapolis reached the steps of the People's House in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely, Dylan. Look, there are efforts underway, at least among Democrats and Republicans who've been negotiating government funding to try and do something to find bipartisan agreement on the Department of Homeland Security funding bill, of which ICE is a branch. Democrats talking about additional oversight for the agency, trying to find ways to rein them in or at least make them follow the law.
Immigrants are welcome here.
Protests in the streets of U.S. cities echoing through the halls of Congress.
House Democrats want accountability and oversight to ICE.
And now it could complicate the already delicate issue of government funding. Reportedly under consideration, leveraging funding for ICE in exchange for critical reforms.
Our caucus members will oppose all funding for immigration enforcement in any appropriation bills until meaningful reforms are enacted to end militarized policing practices.
Those reforms could potentially include requiring agents to wear body cameras and have identification, limiting agents from wearing masks, and mandating more agent training. Some Republicans telling Scripps News they're open to some reforms. Are there any curbs to ICE that you would be willing to accept?
Well, certainly the devil's in the details. I want to know what we're talking about here, but I'm not body cams. That might be fine.
A fight over funding ICE, which is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security, could trigger a partial government shutdown if lawmakers don't reach a deal by the end of the month.
If we are going to fund the Department of Homeland Security, we want to fund an agency that is simply complying with the law.
Last year's One Big Beautiful Bill Act included nearly $75 billion in supplemental funding for ICE through 2029. And the agency is staunchly backed by President Trump.
We will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement.
But Americans are split on the agency, with nearly an even divide among the number who support abolishing it and those who are opposed to doing so. Just to give you more of a sense, Del, of where Democrats stand right now, 70 congressional Democrats today signing on.
Democrats don't give a shit about the American people, okay? They only care about the fucking foreigners getting their pockets filled. ICE had the right what they do, okay? They don't want ICE there because they getting found out. They're getting found out fraud and all that BS. Back to the video.
Saying that they support articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Now, to be clear, Republicans control Congress. It's all but certain that those impeachment articles will fail, but it just shows you where Democrats are right now on Capitol Hill as they look to find ways to rein in ICE.
Nate, it appears then that politics is ruling the day on Capitol Hill as people in Minnesota and other cities across the country are waiting for a quick fix. That does not look like it will be the case. We heard from your reporting that some lawmakers will oppose, though, all ICE funding until there are those reforms. What's the timeline on that? And what is the possibility it will lead to a government shutdown again?
Well, look, that's a very real possibility if ICE is not funded, if the Department of Homeland Security funding does not come through by January 30th. That is the government funding deadline, meaning we could be in a partial government shutdown come January 31st. Now, a number of government funding bills have already passed. Others are in progress. The Department of Homeland Security funding bill, that one has been the most challenging for lawmakers at this stage. But worth noting, if the Department of Homeland Security loses funding come January 30th, January 31st will be in a partial government shutdown. You know what else is under the Department of Homeland Security? TSA. Those officers who screen you when you go take a flight at any airport across the country, they will go unpaid yet again. So again, there's a lot of concern that if Department of Homeland Security funding does not come through, we could be in a partial government shutdown. At this point, those conversations still really happening behind the scenes, Del.
Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed for us live on Capitol Hill. Nate, thank you very much.